Rick and Morty Comic 18. We started with a flash forwards where Morty's tied up and kidnapped in a dark room by people who want to lure Rick to him and complain that Morty doesn't know anything. And one of the criminals says that he won't come because they found a voucher ticket for a replacement Morty. But he laughs at this instead of being disappointed, or confused as hell. So do they want to lure Rick to them successfully or not? We then go from a sad panel to a panel where Rick exclaims that he loves churros with his face all close up. Doing what the series tends to do best, where it makes up for being too dark by being genuinely amusing afterwards. Then we finally cut to 6 hours earlier to explain what was going on. Morty says that he's not sure what's weirder, the pirate-themed Mexican restaurant they're suddenly in, or Rick's hat. Rick says he's honored, and Morty says that all he did was tell them it was his birthday. It was nice of Beth to tell Rick that they got a lovely dinner and he didn't have to do that for his family. Yeah, it wasn't a pleasant surprise that it wasn't just Morty with him, but also Beth. And even Jerry, too. Rick may have gotten some money illegitimately, but at least in this issue we see him actually spend it. And in a positive way. So we should see this more often. It makes it easier to understand why he's always trying to get money from his schemes. Jerry's the only sane man being annoyed with Rick. Probably because of where he got the money, after Rick taunted him about how he fed the family and not him. Beth interrupts him, telling him to get a job already, and Rick says that Morty and him have an important delivery. Jerry wants another round of margaritas, and Beth insults his lameness for calling them a nickname for some reason. Beth says that their marriage lacks passion and mutual respect, and he says that their daughter is missing here. So once again, he's the only sane man to try to make up for being an idiot, because he had to question where Summer was, while Beth didn't. Then we cut to Summer threatening someone with a ray gun, being badass with a pink outfit, telling someone to never hurt anyone again, or else she'll be back. So at least she's trying to accomplish some good in the universe, even if she has no reason to trust that person to actually hold up their end of the bargain, and would be better off killing him just to make sure, whoever it is lazy that we aren't told the context of this. I can only assume he's a gangster. But at least it works for making sure we know she's a hero for sure, because she's focused enough on being righteous to not kill him right away. This tries to make up for her idiot ball and agreeing to explore the universe with a creep like Jones, who makes sure that all of her adventures end up with her in good-looking outfits. Because unlike Rick, she's trying to accomplish good that makes it all worth it. So I wish I knew more about what she was doing exactly, because it's better than what Rick does. I like her line before she said she loves these adventures. Like, that was so her. She says she's almost forgotten about Ethan dumping her, so at least this is making her feel better. Already the story's trying to make up for how she looks like an idiot. Peacock's unhappy when she says that he's a good friend, as if this is the first time he's ever gotten that response from a female companion. Won't he have gotten used to them starting out as friends so that he has to be patient and wait for them to decide to date him? Jones looks at a device on his wrist and says this is unacceptable. And then I wonder why he doesn't get a second female companion that he can be with. And then we see a text box saying 5 hours earlier. I really don't see why the story has to be like this. It's just confusing. 5 hours earlier. A fly-eyed alien says that another planet-wide drug hysteria has broken out on a planet because of new goof juice. Planet-wide? Really? I guess Rick's selling it super cheap and counting on the amount of people getting it making up for it. And he can get away with it because he has a portal gun to deliver it to as many people as he wants. And he's the only one offering it. But still, there's no way that many people at once would take the risk of getting high with an illegal drug, even if it's one that's so rare that it might not be illegal yet. It would be made illegal. The fly guy says that he knows how the goof juice is made, and says that they all just went extinct in an explosion on another planet. So Rick has a lot to answer for. It's hard to believe this, to say the least. It's not like we saw Rick spray gas into the air made from the pimp juice that made everyone on the planet get addicted to it, so that they go to him to pay him for more. Most people wouldn't use it. They figure out that there's a new player in the intergalactic game, because this is real smart guy stuff. Then we cut to 4 hours earlier, where Rick has some fun doing something vague around people, and then Morty calls him out on what he's done. Rick calls him a buzzkill, and then he justifies it with his nihilism again, saying that banks ruin lives every day, and convenience stores charging a lot for 2 liters of soda is also taking advantage. So, because a ton of people do bad things, it's okay for him too? He's definitely tended to be a villain protagonist. This would be more annoying if this guy was meant to be a hero, like Sonic. But instead, this is the point. Morty gets blamed for this because he basically pushed him into it, and Rick says that he's helping people by helping them get high, and helping himself get rich. He gives Morty all that's left of the pimp juice while he'll go to the bathroom, and he's genre savvy immediately by warning him not to destroy it, saying that it's non-addicting, and it's going to make them rich for life. How does he expect him to buy that it's non-addicting? Then, because he's annoyed at Morty for ruining his fun, he gives him what looks like a dollar bill to show that he doesn't need him. And after some thought, I realized that this is why he had the Morty voucher ticket. But it was needlessly reckless of him to give it to him instead of just keeping it with him and merely showing it to him. He's already begging Morty to betray him as it is. He's already being shockingly reckless by trusting him with a pimp juice when he knows he disapproves of it, when he could just keep it in his lab coat. And of course, this is when Morty got kidnapped, because he was reckless enough to leave him all alone. And he's surprisingly able to shrug it off when he can't find him again and go back to having fun. I guess he convinces himself that Morty's fine and just wandered off to have some fun on his own. But you'd think he'd be a bit more concerned about the pimp juice. This is just baffling. Especially since he gave him his Morty voucher ticket. 1 hour earlier, we see Rick ask Jerry where Morty is, and he uses a device to locate Morty. Oh, so this is after he's been kidnapped. He says he's probably been kidnapped in response to him moving on these drug lords' territories. Wait, Jerry's just finding out that he's been selling drugs? I thought that was why he was annoyed in the restaurant. But apparently it really was just that he was sour about how Rick had the money, and he had no job. Rick tells Jerry he can't come with them because he'll just get in the way and get killed, and he can't be bothered explaining that to Beth. And that's a good point that the toilet's his too, and when something goes wrong, he lets a professional fix it. Jerry insists on coming along anyways. Well, it is kinda admirable of him to want to go save his son when he's normally a dirty coward and stuff. It makes sense that he didn't know it was a literal bee gun, because it sounded to him like Rick just said, bee gun, and he wasn't looking at the literal bees in there. But, I guess Rick has pheromones or other smells of some kind in the ray gun that brainwash the bees into not being okay with going after him right after they're shot out of the gun. Because otherwise, a bee gun would easily backfire on the person who shot the bees out if they simply decide to fly back to them after hitting their target. It's so weird of Rick to settle for a bee gun instead of a ray gun, which would be much faster and more harmful and science-like. I like that in the present time, Jerry says that he thought Rick used to say grown men shouldn't wear backpacks, so he's calling him out on hypocrisy as Rick looks through binoculars at night. Rick insists that he's not wearing a backpack, and says that Jerry isn't a competent adult simply because he collects beanbag dogs. And Jerry says that in 10 years those are going to double their value, which is why he actually is an idiot for collecting them, because he's not doing it just because he likes them in the way they look, but because he thinks he'll get money for them later. But I understand his reasoning, that things tend to get more valuable with age. Rick realizes his pimp juice is in there, and tells Jerry that with these people, he just walked right up with a show of force because they respect assertiveness, obviously tricking Jerry to knocking on the door so he could be a distraction, as it was uncharacteristic of Rick to mean it when he said he's got his back in a friendly way to Jerry. Jerry probably went with it because he just wanted an excuse to act brave. He tells the big guy that he's come to get his boy back, and he's not taking no for an answer. And Rick walks into a portal as Jerry gets kidnapped. Lucky for him and Rick that Jerry simply got kidnapped instead of killed. Rick knocks out the purple guy, dealing with a whole bunch of drug dealers in cruel but cartoony ways. It would make more sense for him to just use a ray gun on them, be more sure, and he does use it later on, but I guess he just thought a hands-on approach would be more satisfying against bad guys who kidnapped his grandson. After we see that unrealistically, Jerry was having a conversation about his wife with the guy who kidnapped him, although I guess he was just that desperate to vent about her, Rick kills him to save Jerry, and says that he's fairly sure that those guys regenerate anyways. The joke aside is probably wrong. I mean, there's so many alien species out there, it is realistic that he wouldn't have them all memorized. Rick's told to drop his weapons or he'll lose Morty, and a ridiculous looking drug lord says he just wants his recipe. There's no way he would look like that and be taken seriously. He's just making it a lot harder for himself. But at least it makes it less dark. And apparently Rick recognizes him. Jerry tells him to do what he said, and Rick presses a button that causes 2 extra robot arms to emerge from the thing on his back that shoot lasers. And he says a kind of badass one-liner as a response to how Morty was threatened, with the line that they've gotten themselves in a real pickle. The darkness of it all is lampshaded, as a civilian looks at what Rick is doing through a broken window, and says it used to be such a nice neighborhood, as Rick says that the bad guy is a real jerk who deserves what he got. I mean, that's true. He technically is being a hero here, but he's also being a hypocrite, like it's only okay of him to do. He never even explains that he thinks it's okay to kill these aliens with drugs because they look scary looking. Morty's thankful that Rick came back for him, and Jerry redundantly carries Morty through a portal as Rick says he's going to have to come up with a new method of distribution, because apparently this didn't convince him to stop. To be fair, the problem was that he left Morty alone, and that he can learn from while still not stopping. But he did deserve Jerry glaring at him. And Rick doesn't realize he left his Morty voucher ticket here, and leaves without it. And the civilian actually comes back at the end, and mistakenly says that Rick had 4 arms, naturally, and that he had a silly hat. This helps Rick because now he's known for having 4 arms, and that'll throw the fly police off. But you think they would find the Morty voucher ticket and realize that the drug lord is associated with Morty? I guess they're gonna assume that he's associated with Morty anyways once they capture him. So this story was about Morty getting kidnapped because Rick wasn't protective enough of him on an alien planet to bring him into the bathroom with him and just tell him to not look at him. And instead left him alone with his pimp juice when he knew Morty was mad at him. That was a disaster waiting to happen even without leaving him alone. He just has a little too much faith in him. Actually, Morty could have been fine if he had some kind of way to protect himself, like a ray gun he could surprise the guy with. He could even do it with a shrink ray to shrink the kidnapper away. The whole plot happened because of how reckless and irresponsible Rick is, which is why he's doing his evil plan in the first place. He tries to justify it away as, lots of people take advantage of people anyways, so what makes him so special? It's more like the multiverse is so infinitely massive that he thinks it doesn't matter what he does in the grand scheme of everything. It doesn't change the fact that he could easily get all the money he wanted by making a portal to a bank vault without getting people addicted to pimp juice and causing a planet-wide extinction in the process. So he has no actual reason to do all this. It would actually make more sense if he did it because of the way the aliens looked. Even though that's not smart either. Plenty of otherwise smart people are that superficial. Again, they made him grab the villain ball to justify the story. And the idiot ball earlier, I guess. But at least the story was interesting to read. It does remember to make Rick do a few smart things. He was prepared enough to have a Morty tracker, just in case, and has 2 extra robot arms from his back because he came prepared to save Morty. So he easily wins and saves his life, and gets rid of some drug deals in the process, which is good. Though they'll just be replaced anyways, actually. Apparently the B-gun was just there for a joke because it wasn't used in the actual story. I guess Rick was smart enough to realize it wasn't lethal enough. On the bright side, it seems like Summer is at least being a hero when she's tagging along with Jones, so it's not like she's a complete idiot. It makes her decision worth it because she got to fight bad guys, even if actually doing something about him would be more reliable than just threatening him. I really wish we knew more about what Summer's adventures were like. It'd be nice to see her being a hero a lot to try to make up for and balance out the severe villain ball that Rick's being given. As all Morty's doing is complaining while still doing Rick's bidding. For her, easily going through adventures fighting obvious bad guys will be a lower stakes, more predictable story than the high stakes situation of Morty getting kidnapped, I guess. But that was predictable too, because go figure, Rick would have Morty tracked. So he knew where to go to save him, and saves him easily. And I guess he really does care about Morty to bother having him tracked, even though he has a Morty voucher ticket. So he just gave him that ticket to be a tsundere. It's a shame Jerry couldn't actually help him and just got himself in trouble, but it was still a meaningful gesture that he came along. It was reckless of Rick to risk his life like that. He would have actually been safer just staying at his side. But at least he kept telling him no at first, and Jerry just insisted on it to feel like a hero. But it would have been more impressive if Jerry had defeated at least one bad guy. He could have used the B-gun against someone. I guess Rick thought that if Jerry was armed, it would have guaranteed he would have been killed because it'd be a threat. Well, it'd be merely kidnapped and used to lure Rick if he was unarmed and harmless looking. Since he didn't have a portal gun with him, it should have been obvious that his presence meant Rick was nearby. But Rick dealt with the bad guys fast enough that a warning wouldn't have mattered anyways. I think that so far the show does a better job with making Rick both a big villain in his big villain moments, and someone you can kind of root for. Like, he had a really good point with the so-called superhero team that he knew weren't all the good guys they claimed to be. I'd rather see drunk Rick from that episode, because his motive made perfect sense compared to what comic Rick's doing right now.